Hi, welcome to this channel on magnetic energy, technology, principles, applications. This video is about magnetic energy and agriculture, and this is a bit of a follow-up from last week, or from the previous video, I'm sorry, and this quote is from 1985. Measurements that enable us to calculate energy have been reduced in effectiveness by improper ratios. So this was a revelation, a revelatory insight from higher beings that was part of a much larger conversation about what has been happening in the last 100 years or so with humanity and the changes that have taken place. Things like the refinement of uranium and all these whole different suite of radioactive elements that have been developed, and then like the development of plastics, and then like thousands of different what if you want to call them synthetic chemicals that have been produced by changing natural things from the environment, but changing them however you do. And so all of these things that produce unnatural elements, if you want to call them that, or unnatural, what from the magnetic point of view, this is like the magnetic resonance that is produced by these unnatural energetic signatures or elements, whatever you want to call them, is a huge problem. And so this conversation went on to say that if that continues, it will result in the continuous upheaval of the elements and ultimately in the extinction of humanity. And that's partly why there's been this whole program and this push to get through this change fast, to go through the whole accelerated enlightenment kind of program, and then the push to get new technology like magnetic energy out there so that we can clean up the planet, get rid of all these unwanted products, and really move forward. An analogy for this might be like if you have a symphony or an orchestra and you bring in an instrument that's just horribly out of tune, that really kind of destroys the resonance of the overall production. And that's really what happens with like plastic and chemicals and radioactive elements. Even when you take like uranium inside of a mountain and there's a very specific set of magnetic ratios, resonant signatures that take place with it at that exact level in comparison to everything around it. And then when you over concentrate that and you spin that in a centrifuge and you start manipulating things, you change the magnetic resonance signature of that particular element, or those what we'd call the molecular structures. You're changing the energetic signature of all those things. And even like when you take petroleum out of the ground, which we shouldn't be doing at all, and then you go through a whole modification process of that, and then you change that into plastics, that creates something that is not recognized by the system. So it's cacophony, it's dissonance, it creates dissonance in the system, it creates imbalance, it creates blockages of etheric flow in the system. And all of this relates right back to food, because GMOs, the chemicals that are used in the food manufacturing process or in the growth of food, the agricultural process, and the genetic modification of any type of those crops creates huge dissonance in the system. And it is ultimately, of course, the demise of humanity to have GMOs, and it should be outlawed. Terminator seeds, Monsanto and all these companies should absolutely be outlawed from doing what they do to the crops, patenting genetic sequences, getting in bed with the US government with Terminator seeds and all these type of things that allow them to essentially try to control agriculture, control humanity, and basically enslave people to their system of profits for food production. It's really beyond insane that they're doing that. And so with the evolution or the revolution of magnetic technology, hopefully, and just a smidge of enlightenment, all of that practice will stop. It will be completely outlawed. All GMO crops will be 100% destroyed, and we will move back into a natural, harmonic, magnetic resonance with all of the food production. So, zero chemicals, zero genetic modification, and if the shit hits the fan, like if and when, like we're told it's going to, and so many others around the world are told that it's coming so soon. One of the first things, just in my humble opinion, that should happen is the authorization of magnetic engines in all agricultural technology, in all agricultural tractors, everything, combines, the whole thing, so that the food production can keep going, and then also the authorization to retrofit all transportation that is necessary to bring that food to people, so that they can have that, retrofitting that with magnetic energy engines, so that there will be no halt in that production, or very little halt. When we kind of get through this transition and we start to see magnetic energy technology come into the agricultural arena, we will see the true power of neutral magnetic pulsing when it comes to crop production and food production, and how healthy it is and all the benefits of it. That will blow people's minds, and what we will do with crops with magnetic technology is so revolutionary. Now, the first thing, obviously, we've got to have technology similar to like the magnetic water purifier and the magnetic pump to provide the water for all crops everywhere. And one of those reasons is because we want that neutral magnetic energy signature all throughout the water, and that way it gives us the ability to encode the water, to program the water to do all the awesome things that we would like it to do in an agricultural setting. But it's that just having it, that neutral magnetic energy embedded in the water for growth, will accelerate growth. It will enhance all the nutrient qualities. It'll allow you to grow essentially faster and better and hardier food that is resistant to pests, that is resistant to mold and mildew and all these things. So they'll be much tougher, but they'll also be much more full of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and everything. The other thing is, just as a quick note, the water pump is designed to bring water up from far below our standard water tables that are tapped around the world. And so that gives us the ability to have food production locally, essentially anywhere on the planet. And as soon as you bring in the replication technology, you can then have basically the building of greenhouses that are not only relatively indestructible, but the panels could be replicated, so it's relatively cheap and fast to get all the construction materials that you need for greenhouses. And these are going to be like basically transparent crystallized metal sheets that are so strong, but that are conducive to the flow of like the etheric flow, the magnetic energy flow, so that we can do whatever we want with those greenhouses in terms of pulsing, lighting, the fields around them and through them, the focusing of those fields. And these greenhouses could be massive. I mean, as big as we need them to be. Like an example would be in the United States, every state at that point could have greenhouses that are literally miles long and as high as we want them to be. And every state could have its own independent food production. And just because there's like keeping it local, keeping people involved in that process and people more connected to the growth of food. And it's a very healthy thing. And in an enlightened world, people will want to be more part of that process, since they're not necessarily tied to their jobs as much. It's kind of fun to go into the whole food production. And the thing is, with the magnetic technology and the greenhouse technology, is we control the environment. So any type of food, any type of crop, and stuff that we've never even heard of, like lots of it is coming. Things that we've literally never even heard of will be grown in greenhouses that are indestructible. And the soil invigoration, whatever you want to call it, the idea of needing fertilizer really goes away, because we are using neutral magnetic pulsing with encoded resonance that will provide the soil not only with the growth of like the continuous production of optimal nutrition in the soil if you want to use soil, but then you can also go to strictly hydroponic growing without even the need of chemicals or fertilizers in the water. So you could have the water itself is entrained to be fully nutrient based. And this kind of is a different take on like how things actually work and how physics actually works. And so it's this idea that as you take magnetic resonant signatures, you can entrain the water to have the specific nutrient ratios that are the best for that particular crop. And that gives you just incredible versatility and control over your environment. And then we move into lighting. So the magnetic lighting it's like the closest thing to natural lighting that you could get. So it is a nuclear reaction, but it is a safe nuclear reaction that produces a neutral magnetic pulsing of light that we can then control everything about it, and then also the heat. So then the magnetic heaters can be provided in that environment as well. So you could have, and cooling. So the greenhouses could be literally in any environment in the planet, anywhere. It doesn't matter how cold or hot it is. The same exact food production can be anywhere. And then you have control over your environment, and you have just perfectly nutritious, healthy, organic food, no chemicals, no pesticides, no herbicides, none of that stuff. And this is a revolution in agricultural production. And it's about kind of getting away from the corporate farming method, because it's incredibly manipulative, destructive, controlling, and letting all that go back and bringing back local farming and the power of local farming and putting it in the hands of the people. And now you could have the larger greenhouses, obviously, but you could also have everything down to individual family greenhouses that could be indoor, outdoor, whatever size you want, that is fully magnetically energy driven, controlled, and operated, so that an individual family can have fun and basically grow whatever types of food they want in their own greenhouse and whatever size that they can accommodate or want to kind of work with. So you kind of get the idea of like where this could go and how powerful this could be. And it's agriculture and magnetic energy are like that. I mean, they're so closely tied, because that neutral magnetic pulsing and the idea of food production is so powerful. It's hard to even describe how important it is for us to move in that direction, and to have the water be part of it, have all the plants be part of it, the nutrition, all the crops, and 100% natural with zero genetic modification. You don't need it. It's not necessary anymore. And it's no longer necessary to have chemicals and pesticides and herbicides on your food either. All of that is completely archaic. It is a terrible practice, and it's time. It's really time for us to, as a society, to forget about all of that and let all of that go and bring in new technology that we can do everything that we need to do with pulsing neutral magnetic fields that are encoded, and they have the correct signatures embedded within them to do everything we need to do without anything that's unnatural. So the soapbox that I'm on with this is just such an important issue, because it affects all of us, and it affects people around the world. I mean, half the world has all kinds of problems with food, and then even the industrialized countries are so malnourished on so many ways, and we have no idea what's happening with our food and how unhealthy what we eat really is. So it's time to go back to supercharged, super organic. And not only that, last thing on this, as we go through these steps of higher consciousness and expanded awareness, and we get this glimpse, we're going to start to get this glimpse of interdimensional processes. So this idea that we're going to be able to see energy fields that we normally don't see is going to become commonplace among people. And people will see straight out that the food that we are eating has such a low vitality to it. It has such a low magnetic resonance signature that the etheric and magnetic energy flowing through it is almost not even there. And especially like when you get into like artificial ripening of foods, there will be no need to artificially ripen anything anymore. It can grow till it's ripe and get it straight to the marketplace, because everything should be done locally and in touch with people minutes away. And that way you're working with food that will people will see. It will literally glow. It will glow with energy. It will glow with vibrancy. It will have what we would call an attract field, or a a draw factor to the ionosphere. Like, it will literally have energy that we will see flowing in and out of it, and an aura just glowing around it. That is what we are meant to be eating. That's the type of food that we are meant to have, raising our vitality, raising our immune systems, healing all disease, and getting us back to an optimal level of health. And so I hope all of that kind of, if I'm missing anything, please send in questions if you have questions on this stuff, because I just love the questions that are produced by these topics, and I hope that we can keep a conversation going about this, and really get magnetic technology involved in agriculture on every level around the world, because it's really important that this happens. And it will happen when we go through this transition, but even in thinking about it and planning about it and how we could change things even now is pretty awesome. And so thank you for listening, and I will see you again. Thanks.